Hello fellow agents, glad you are watching our livestock composting video. This is Little Harnett up Boyd County. I'm the A&R agent here, and you have seen Steve talk about the science and the development of the livestock composting problem. He's got all the technical stuff on how to build them and whatever you need. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, and I've had some interest in the way that we are doing it here. What we have done, we have taken a portion of our property and we have turned it into basically a free community livestock composting site. We look at it as offering a service to our farmers and livestock owners who do not have the equipment, the number of acres, the amount of land or whatever to properly dispose of a deceased animal, regardless of how it died. As you all know, state law basically requires the animal to either be incinerated, buried, or now composted. Most of us don't have a livestock incinerator in the county. Many of my farmers do not have the equipment, the backhoe, the excavator, whatever, to basically dig a 9-10 foot hole to put a full-grown mature horse or cow down into to get the proper depth from the surface that the law requires to be buried. Unfortunately, and I'm sure a lot of you are in the same situation, when an animal dies on the farm, a lot of times it is just sort of drugged to the back 40 and hoping that the coyotes and the buzzards and maybe the next flood will eliminate the problem. And as we know, that is not environmentally and ecologically sound, much less definitely not legal in the state of Kentucky. So the way ours work is we have a very good relationship with our local Asplund branch, if you will. I talk to the foreman fairly often, several times through the year when we've had big storms come through, or they are just doing some line alleyway cleanup for the phone company or the electric company or whatever. They are usually looking for a place to get rid of their chips. Well, if they don't have a place to dump them, they wind up having to take them to the landfill, and they charge them X amount per ton or load or whatever they've worked out with that. With us, we give them a place that they can dump their chips for free. There are days we'll get 4 or 5 of those big truckloads of chips come in. If it's not raining and the ground is not muddy, they take them right back very adjacent to where we're doing the composting, and we'll dump their chips there. We've given them a code to our key box to the property so they can come in after hours, access the key, unlock the gates, dump it at their convenience. They can do it during the day when the property is open. Our location is on a reclaimed strip mine. So one issue that we have is when it rains, the soil gets very slick. We are not concerned about those heavy trucks sinking into it, but that top 2 or 3 inches of that subsoil clay that came up and was turned into the surface of this strip mine gets very slick, and the Asplund trucks will not haul this all the way back to where we are dumping, need it dumped. So they have a alternate site that they can dump then, and then our custodians will load it out into a dump trailer that we've got and haul it back there in several loads. Obviously, we would rather them take it back, saves us in manpower, time, and whatever. What we have found, unfortunately, this past spring with the ice storm that we have had a surplus of cleanup going on around the county, which was not a good thing for the county. For us as a composter, it was a good spring. because we have 10, 15, 20 loads of chips on the standby, and we are actually through our busy season, if you will, which is usually from January through April to May in there during the birthing season, for a lot of times for foals and for calves. The practical way that this works is to start out with, we did it very limited, very small piles. We'd get one load of chips in. We would have made contact with a few, I made contact with a few of my local farmers. If they had an animal that died, they'd give me a call. They would bring it in, and we would bury it, so to speak, in the chips and compost it. The first one we did, we had some excess sawdust and wood shavings from when we had the county fair. We had cleaned out the barns and the stalls, and we thought, hey, we've got this material, it's woody like Steve had said, and let's use it. We buried the animal. Steve came back about 8 weeks after we had buried it. We uncovered it because we wanted to demonstrate to the audience for this program how it had decomposed, and we got down to the animal, and there had been next to no decomposition at all that had happened, because the manure and the sawdust had packed in so tight it had eliminated the oxygen and even the amount of water that could have got down in there, and the bacteria just weren't able to do their job in that environment. So we had to completely uncover this, build a new bed out of 100% asplund chips, and then cover it. And as Steve said, we make about a 2-foot bed. We put the animal down on it, and then we cover it with about, we like to put in about 4 foot of chips on top of it. When we get the animal in, typically the farmer brought it in on a pickup truck or a little 16-foot trailer or what have you. We'll take our tractor, we'll pull it off, we will position it and then cover it. So after the initial growing pains, if you will, and once we started getting enough chips in, we have opened it up, and I've advertised it to any farmer in Boyd County. Now we do not take pets. We do not take cats, dogs, hamsters, gerbils, or whatever. It is a livestock composting. And Steve can get into this more if you got questions on that, but there's difference in the bacteria in the gut and some health issues associated with pets as opposed to livestock. We take in horses, cattle, sheep, goats, pigs. We've composted donkeys, we've composted llamas. If it is considered livestock, we will do it unless, like I say, it's considered a pet. Now, it costs our farmers absolutely zero to bring their livestock into this. All that we ask is that they call ahead so that we know that they're coming, and my guys can get a bed of chips made for them to put them down in and then cover them up. We do not allow them to come in within an hour of our guys leaving, because they don't have enough time to leave it out, and obviously we are not going to leave that animal laying out uncovered overnight, because that creates a whole new set of problems, in our case, coyotes. I had a individual that had called me late on a Friday. They had an animal that the vet had unexpectedly had to put down. They had someone there that could haul it the next morning on a Saturday when we had no one that was available. They had taken our tractor safety course so they could drive our tractor. We left them a key, and they buried the animal themselves. That was all fine and good, except they did not follow the instructions that they were given. The bed was ready for them, so they put the animal on the bed, and they only put about 2 foot of chips over it. Well, when we came in Monday morning, the coyotes had smelled the animal and had dug down and had a very good weekend food-wise for the animals. They had uncovered a lot of it, and it was scattered around. The individual, it was a 4-H horse club member's horse. They were out that next Tuesday or Wednesday and were out riding around that area, and I got a email, text, something. Mom was very upset because they found pieces and parts of the animal scattered around the area, and were upset with us because that had happened, even though they had not buried the animal correctly themselves and followed the directions. So because of that, no self-burials are allowed anymore. It has to come through us. We do it right. Unfortunately, we are still paying long-term for that mistake because the coyotes now know that is a burial site, and we have to take the livestock panels, the welded wire panels that we've got that have been broken up and bent up, that we've cut up, and when we bury an animal, we put about 3 foot of chips on, and then we put one of those panels down, and then another foot of chips. And as the coyotes try to dig through, they run into that panel, and they can't dig any further. And we've about got them broke from even trying now. So there are issues. We've never had vulture problems, never had coyote problems up until that one. So if you look at doing this in your county, be sure the animals are buried correctly the way Steve suggests, and it will not be a problem. A couple of other things that we do. Steve talks about where after you bury an animal and it composts down, that you can reuse that developed compost as sort of a starter compost because it's bacteria laden on the next animal that comes in. We do not reuse our broke down material because we have so much asplin material, we do not need to. Basically, when that animal is buried in that compost, it sits there until we have need for that compost. And I can tell you the compost, after it sits there for 3 or 4 years, even those large wood chips, the critter themselves, it has broken down into just an excellent potting material, organic material, very tilthy. You don't find the wood chips in it, and it is just like the best loamy type soil that you could find. Some of the things that we use it for, and we do not give this compost out. You know, we don't have like 2 Saturdays every year that come in and get the free compost. Basically, we're using it ourselves. I know Lori Bowling, horticulture agent here in Boyd County, she has several raised beds growing either flowers in around our facilities, or she has some educational raised beds that she works with some garden clubs, some physically handicapped individuals that come over and they work on these, and those beds are filled with this compost. We've never put anything else in them. No soil, no potting soil, no dirt, no river sand, nothing. It's just pure 100% critter compost, as I call it. And with that, I know she has got some raised beds that she's grown vegetables in for 4 years now. We've never had to fertilize, and they are making healthy, large produce on them. The peppers, the tomatoes are just absolutely gorgeous coming off on it. So you can save a little bit of money there. Also, she has got a demonstration garden, and I've got a little area set aside that I can do some demo plots on, like cover crops or various grains or whatever. And we take this compost and spread it out on these areas to improve the organic matter, because like I said, this is a reclaimed strip job and the organic matter in the soil is very low, so we have built up the soil and are getting better results with our demonstrations because of this. I will tell you that when you put it in, Steve says it takes about 6 weeks under ideal conditions. We don't dig in 6 weeks to find it. Like I say, once it's buried, because of the way we do it, we start at the back end of a windrow, basically. Again, as Steve had talked about, we bury an animal, and then we come out in front of that, build the next bed, and put the next animal there, and just extend it out. And we can go about 100 feet, 120 feet before we have to start the next windrow. So we can get a lot of animals buried in one windrow. But on the back end of that windrow, that animal will stay buried there for several years before we use that compost on it, because we want it ready to go on, no chips and whatever. When you do dig into it, even after several years, we will find at times, depending on the animal, and I'm assuming it's going to depend on whatever that animal's diet was, what the minerals were going into the bones or whatever, but we will find rib bones is the bone that we will find mostly from cattle or horses. Occasionally we will find a fairly intact skull. We will find the femur bones, the bigger bones, that we will find occasionally as we go through it, and we just dig it up, throw them to the side and rebury them, and eventually they will break down. But sometimes it takes longer, and it's I'm sure it's got to do with the mineral content in the skeleton of that animal that we built, or that we buried on that. We have had dozens of farmers take advantage of this. I know 2021, from January through April, or actually through May, we had buried right at 30 animals this year. The majority of them are cattle and horses. Occasionally we will get a goat or a sheep. And I will mention, if you bury sheep, if you don't leave it in there long enough, the animal will break down, the bones will break down. But if you just go into it after a couple of years, you may still find wool in there, and little patches, handfuls of wool. The wool is what, on a sheep, in my experience, takes the longest to break down. So be aware of that. I mean, most people don't mind seeing a little wool, but you never know. Sometimes I will get a call from a horse owner, and they have been in contact with their vet. Vet's been out, and the 27, 29-year-old horse is in very poor health and is suffering and needs to be put down. They want to know if they can bring it out to be composted. And we're absolutely sure. Bring it on out. We'll take care of it for you. The issue is the vet is going to have to put the animal down. They don't have a flatbed trailer or the tractor to lift the dead animal and load it into the bed of a truck. So what they do, they load the horse into their horse trailer and bring it to us live. The vet will meet them there and do the euthanasia on the site of our composting operation. Now, what we will do is we will build that 2-foot bed, 3-foot bed, and bring the horse next to it. The vet will apply the euthanizing agent, and as the horse starts to go down and get sleepy and go down, we sort of guide it down, usually with the owner on the reins, and guide it down on that bed, that we have very little need to reposition it after the horse has gone down. Basically tuck the legs in and just make it in there, and then we cover it up and it's done. A warning: if you've dealt with horse people, some of them's had these horses their entire lives, that can be a very emotional time. You've just got to be sort of walking on pins and needles around there. Sometimes they can't be there, and you have to hold the halter to help the animal down. Like I say, just very emotional. Usually with cattle, it's more of a dollars and cents type thing. They're upset because they've lost mama cow trying to have a calf that was too big, and there's a few $1,000s that they are burying and going to turn into compost. They're upset about that. But with the horses, it can be more emotional and a personal thing. So you've got to be wary of that. I thought when we started doing the horses that the people, the owners, some of them would be wanting to come back out and visit the gravesite, so to speak, that they would be a little upset when they understood that the compost will be used. But for the most part, that has not been the case. They feel good about the way that it's handled. They think we're handling the animal with dignity, if you will, that we respect it. You know, we're not just knocking it around, just whatever it takes to get it done. We try to treat it very nicely. And then when it's done, the animal is actually going to a good cause. That, you know, it's going into the demo gardens or the raised beds or something like that. So those are the basics of what we do. One last thing. I am in the process of working with our county judge, and I was in the fall of and winter of 2019-2020 until COVID hit, and then things sort of got off rail because the physical court was meeting virtually and all that, and I'm getting back in contact with him about this topic, that I am going to do a presentation to the county physical court and the judge. And the judge is very supportive of this, that I'm going to work with them to apply for some of our phase 1 money for a dead animal removal. And the way I envision this working, and I've talked to the judge about it, and of course it'll be up to the physical court, is they will apply for a couple of $1,000s a year, which is about all we get. So for a year or two, that would be all the money that we had. But then they would use that to reimburse themselves through the road department, that if someone has a large animal that goes down, specifically horses for the most part, because cattlemen tend to have more equipment that they can maneuver with. But if a horse goes down and the owner cannot get it to us, they could call the road department. Road department would go out and get it in a truck, on a trailer or something, and bring it to us. And then out of that dead animal removal fund that the county would be administrating, they could reimburse themselves $25 or $50 per animal to cover their expenses. Just another service that we're hoping to offer our clientele. So with that, I think I'm done with this. I will be around during the Q&A session, so if you got any more specific questions for me, please feel free to ask. Have a good day. Thanks.